Hi everyone. My name is Olivia Fenty, and I'm the founder of the Chocolate Project. Essentially, the Chocolate Project is an initiative that centers the artistic expression and healing of Black women and femmes through artistic and healing spaces, and in community-rooted spaces. And so, we do a lot of workshops, conventions, essentially just giving Black women and femmes the opportunity to talk about their experiences and how they view the world, what's on their mind, because I do think that information is not only like important to talk about, but I think it's also important in terms of everyone else's liberation. But I ain't gonna get on my soapbox about that right now. Anyway, so the conversation I wanted to have, it's called Perceived but Not Fully Desired. And essentially this conversation came out of I was reading a Substack called What Does It Mean to Move Through Life as a Woman Who's Admired, Desired, but Never Kept? And I thought it was really interesting. I think it just talked about being a Black woman and yearning for real love and connection, but then also on the flip side, not always being in a position where we are kept or considered. And then it's like people tell you, think you have to like worry about yourself and you need to make sure that you are able to be by yourself. But I think there's also on top of that a very real desire for love that I think sometimes people forget is on the other end of that. Like, yes, I love myself, but also I would like to be loved by another person, and that's a very real experience and real want. And so I wanted to expand on it and basically talk about how that concept of being perceived but not fully desired shows up in our inner lives, relationships, how we view ourselves, and also our care practices. And so, oh, okay, they bumped it. Okay. Well, yeah, so that's a bit about the conversation. So everyone can introduce themselves. You can say your name, where you're tuning in from, your pronouns, and also like what drew you to this conversation. Anybody's free to start.
I'll go ahead and start. My name is Jess. I know my government is right there on the screen, but you can just call me Jess. Um, I am zooming in from San Francisco, California. Um, and then what drew me to this conversation at this point in time, I guess I would say it's actually feeling very like on the other side of a lot of this, if that makes sense, of a lot of these feelings. Like really and but like just on the other side, I would say maybe like in the past year or so, I think my life has changed a lot. And really wanting to take the time to kind of like reflect on, I would say maybe like the past 6 or so years that felt like they were very much entrenched in this idea of being very perceived but not fully desired or considered.
Hmm.
Pronouns are she and they.
I'll go next. Thank you, Jess. Hi, y'all. I'm Legacy. I'm tuning in from Boston, Dorchester to be specific. Um, and what drew me to this conversation, it was just very resonant. Um, Perceived but not fully desired, desired but not kept is just something that it's been a concept that I've grappled with a lot in the last few years. Um, so I thought, why not join in on this conversation? Yeah. I'm a poet as well. I feel like some of my poetry touches on this. And even, I guess, to take it a step further, where it's like when you're kind of yearning for love and looking for it, searching it, and you have these prospects, it's like they're holding you but not keeping you, or when they try to keep you, they're just doing you a disservice. So kind of exploring that as well. And my pronouns are they, them. You can say she, her too, but prefer they, them.
I'll go next. So my name is Deja. I'm tuning in from PG County, Maryland, specifically Capitol Heights, DMV area. And my pronouns are she, her. I feel like what drew me to this conversation, the initial title of the Substack, honestly, reading it is kind of something that I felt like, wow, somebody said that out loud. She really talks a lot about in the Substack about it being like a quiet, kept secret that women or us as Black femmes feel this way in general. But specifically this time in my life, I feel like I'm 25, so you kind of, when you're younger in your teenage years, you have expectations of what your life will look like, or, maybe you imagine to be settled down by a certain age. And like Jess was saying, kind of being on the other side of those feelings, but still acknowledging that you have them is sort of like, you expected to maybe be at a certain stage romantically. And just to not be that, it kind of feels like, why am I not kept? Or, what does it even mean to be kept in general? So I feel like this was an important conversation to have.
It's 25. And it's interesting, like looking back, I was just talking with my friend about,
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you repeat your name real quick? It's like cut out
yeah.
initially. Sorry.
So is this better?
Yeah.
Okay, I think the mic was blocked. Um, my name is Christiana. My pronouns are they, them. It's fun to be here because I was here like 4 years ago. Hi, Jess. Nice to see you. Nice to see you, Olivia. Um, and I think I was drawn to this conversation for many reasons. Um, Deja, really resonated when you said like 25 and thinking like, okay, this is the plan. Like, and I remember I was just talking with a good friend. We've been friends since like 5, 6 years old, and we're like, man, like 25, we're supposed to have, been thinking about the second kid, like the master's already there. We were young. We didn't know how like masters and college worked, okay, guys. But everything was already set. Like maybe we would have been done with Yale. I don't know. So that's where we were. And now it's like, dang, like this is different. But I also feel you just on being like on a different side. Like I don't think I'm all the way on the other side, but I think a lot has changed. So yeah.
Thank you for introducing yourselves, everyone. And I'm really all happy that you all are here. I'm really excited for this conversation. And I feel like this is an amazing group of people to have it. And okay, so the first question I wanted to start with was fair. Yeah, I'm 27. I'm like, oh shit. Um, okay, so when you hear the phrase perceived but not fully desired, what feelings or memories surface for you?
I, d-
Um,
oh, you can go. Okay. I don't mind going first. And like I said, this is already a hard conversation, so we're saying all the things, but I would say feelings of inadequacy. And I think that's a hard feeling to admit if we're being honest. But often people will have a fear of being perceived. But in reality, I feel like they're just afraid of people potentially not liking what they see when they are being perceived. So I think to be perceived but not fully desired, it sometimes can just feel like being known but not necessarily liked in a way.
I think that and maybe it's because like the first time we did this conversation, I was like, at a PWI, but I think being perceived but not fully desired felt a lot like being visible, which I know ties into later question. And just everybody kind of seeing you. Like there weren't a lot of Black people on campus. I could see someone like several yards away and know who it was by their gait, like, you know. And so I always felt like, yeah, people see me, but I think there was a way that men approached me, where it was like kind of feeling like this thing, conquest, um, or like kind of a fun little fling, but never, you know, really desired in a sense of like marriage or like family or even beyond that, just being seen as a human being who would be, a great friend and a great partner.
I'ma go. Um, Thank y'all. When I think of perceived but not fully desired, I think of perceived but not fully known. I think to be known is to be loved. Um, and I think there's an effort and an energy that goes into that. And um, hmm, yeah, I definitely mess with what Deja was saying, where it's like perceived but not desired is like to be known and not liked. And I think adding on to that is like to not be fully known as well, or not wanting to take that extra step. And I think hmm, with me being like non-binary as well, it or just having layers of yourself that you want to not necessarily showcase to the world so readily because you're afraid of um, not that vulnerability not being liked. So that kind of goes into that, but that's what I think of when I think of that quote.
Yeah, I really resonate with what everybody is saying. And I think when I think of the word perception, I think of it is like it's like the thing of the thing, right? So it's not the thing itself, but it is your own projections or your own way of being that is wrapped up in how you see the thing, your lens of how you see the thing, and needing to understand it. And this is something that I feel like most people like often don't understand is that just because you see something a certain way doesn't mean that that's what that thing actually is, right? Because your eyes are colored by your experience in this life. So when I think of it, I think of, okay, being perceived as in like I'm being looked at through a lens that is not wholly aligned with who I am or what I know myself to be, right? And when I think of fully desired, I think of somebody being willing to acknowledge that lens and being able to challenge it or take it off to whatever degree they can so that they can come to fully know me and not the perception of me that they have based off their own experience.
You ate that up, Jess.
Yeah, I really love the way that you put that. Honestly made me think about, I feel like for me, when I think of the question, what comes to mind is probably when I was like more so dating men, not even gonna hold you. Like I feel like I was performing a sense of femininity and it felt very like incongruent with the way that I saw myself. Like I was like, okay, like it felt very much like, okay, the boy does this, the girl does this, and I'd be like, I don't want to do that though. I don't want to do that. I don't want to participate in that. And I don't want to have to like represent this thing that just feels so unnatural to me. And I think when I started dating women and non-binary folks, just not straight cis men, like I feel like I was able to like the way that I was able to express my femininity was a like the spectrum of it was a lot more wider. And I think I was able to show up in a relationship how like in terms of like what's best for me rather than what's expected of me, if that makes sense. Like one thing I'm thinking of, like something as like trivial as like cooking. Like I don't be cooking for these. Like I don't be cooking. Like I'm not trying to cook. Like what the hell? Like, and I feel like it was always like, well, that's something that you're supposed to do. That's the way that you show your affection. And I'm like, well, I just need to meet a beautiful woman that knows how to cook and loves to cook. Everyone needs to just do what they're good at. Everyone needs to like, and it's, but I'm not, that's not what I'm good at, and that's not what I want to do. Um, but it's like that's something that's expected of you as a woman showing up in a relationship with a man, that that is the way that you express your affections. That's the thing that you're good at. That's the thing that you take care of. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like in that vein, we're so conditioned to perform in all senses of the word. And that definitely, even more so, like the more not isolated, but ostracized you are, like when you add on all of these like isms, like, okay, you're black, and then it's different when you are a black woman as well. And then it's different when you're a queer black woman. Like you we're conditioned to follow this construct. Or yeah, am I making sense? I don't know. It's like breaking down the conditioning. But definitely, like when you are so conditioned to be something that you're not, um I don't know, it just really goes into that kind of dual sight of like, okay, this is who I am. Or some people don't even really like allow themselves to explore themselves because they're like, this is not what's going to get me far, because I am inherently not desired, so how do I move in a way where I can fit into the best of my ability or succeed to the best of my ability? And it's like that, and that in and of itself is fucked. So yeah, I'm here for all of this unlearning and relearning and this like reckoning with self, and seeing how at the end of the day we can come to desire ourselves or become versions of ourselves that we actually fuck with. And like the revolution in that, the resistance in that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because honestly, I think that this kind of place, I'm like, I got this Substack up too, just to like reference some pieces of it, and it's just such a dangerous place to be in, actually. It's that's like that state of being where you find yourself in the wanting more than you find yourself being like in the being, is such a dangerous place to be in. Um, because you will compromise a lot. You will compromise your integrity. You will compromise what kind of person you end up being with, which leads to compromises sometimes with health and safety. Um, all for this, again, it's really an idea of being wanted, right? Like just because someone's like, I'm with you, doesn't mean that you're wanted, right? Um, and it's really something where I think that you have to try and figure out and learn like how to place the power back within yourself. Because when you say that I want this thing so badly that it causes me to be in places where I'm feeling ignored, be in places where I'm experiencing trauma, where I might be experiencing abuse, to be in places where people are tokenizing me or looking at me to do a certain thing, but not fully considering or listening to my needs in that space. And then I'm saying, like, well, at least I'm here. If I wasn't here, then nobody would see me, and at least I'm here, right? It really warps, I think, your relationship with yourself and your own ability to be able to realize that you can choose. You can choose. It is not about being chosen. The power is within you to choose just as much as other people have the power to choose, right? And what a liberating thing it is to realize that I also am in control of my own circumstances and who I choose to be with and who I choose to spend my time with, right? Because I think growing up, you don't really have that sense, right? It is growing up, I mean, the the oppression of children is a different thing, right? But I think it's related in the sense that as children, we are often taught that we are auditioning for love, and if we do certain things, we will be chosen and we are worthy of love. And if you never fully distance yourself or are able to like rewire your brain into realizing that like, oh, wait, I was worthy from the beginning. I don't owe my parents anything for having me. I don't owe my parents anything for taking care of me, for putting that roof over my head and them clothes on my back and them foods and that food in my belly, which is what they are supposed to do by virtue of having you, which was not your choice. They're supposed to do that, right? So if I think that that's what I'm supposed to do to be loved, then of course I'm always going to be in a position where I am trying to make it easier on someone else to love me.
Ah,
I feel like I had this kind of is getting into another question that you had. I think what messages feel the hardest to unlearn? And I was saying basically that we should assimilate and that we should change the way that we're showing up to be loved. I think in a society where our experiences aren't catered to, it's hard to be grounded in your identity in a society that is going to try to change you. So it's that even takes unlearning to not assimilate to what we feel like we need to do in order to be loved or to be seen and understood.
um, yes, yes. I think something that was said that's so important is we have options. You know, the abundance is with us, within us, around us. Like we are abundant in general. And so I think we're kind of conditioned to move from this lack mentality, move from this like mindset because we're like, oh, like who's gonna have me? Who's gonna have me? Who's gonna want this? Who's gonna know me and like what they see and experience? Because the world don't. So yeah, and I think that's definitely taught from a young age. We're grown up in that, raised in that. And mm, there were so many things said. I'm like trying to backlog. But that kind of auditioning for love feels like the start, like even with parents as children, feels like the start of performing. And I kind of forget where I wanted to take that. But oh, I mean, I guess also that kind of brings up the idea of the matriarch and like how as Black women you're born a mother, and whether it be to your younger siblings, whether it be to parents that are unhealed, um there's just so many different layers to the performance, and why we have the superwoman, trope and all these different things that we are to be, as long as it's not who we are, if that makes sense. Like it's never okay to just be. Um, yeah. So I guess I'm learning all of that, but it's like you don't know what you don't know, so you can't really call something out if you don't have the words for it. So I think part of the unlearning is to learn kind of what's happening, and yeah, so the learning and unlearning of all that.
I like too that you brought up the matriarch of the family. I think to be a mother, it takes a certain level of discernment, a certain level of groundedness. And I think to be that, It's something that society doesn't necessarily like until it caters to them. Like we'll see often, or if you're ever in trouble in public, run up to a black woman and a black woman will defend you and protect you. And it's like, but if I'm defending and protecting myself, now I'm angry. Now I'm something that you don't desire. So only when it's beneficial to them.
There's so much to say. Yeah, I'm kind of where you are, Legacy. I'm like, hold on, because each conversation is no, we need 5 hours for this. But um I think like three things. One, I don't know how long you've been in the DMV area, Deja, but like I think there's a very particular um expectation placed on Black girls, Black femmes, Black women in the DMV area. If you look at, especially in PG County in Northern Virginia and some parts of DC where it feels a little bit more Jack and Jill type. It feels a little bit more, you have to be presentable and graceful and all of these things. You can't just show up unfiltered because then you're holding all of us back because no, everybody's gonna think you're this and that. Like the way the ghetto, which is not a bad word. No, because I have things to say. I have things to say. Oh, y'all I'm holding back. But like no, because the Jack and Jill of it all and as someone who is very much like they, them, femme, heavy on the femme, like the idea of debutante balls and the gowns and the Bridgerton, like I love that. I just think it hurts to know that, you know, um, Apple Roan can show up as who she is, as, a queer white woman, and people are gonna be like, wow, revolutionary, but like Tracy Chapman was treated differently.
Mm.
Um, people people highly sexualize Kali Uchis. Like there's so many things to being a person of color in queer spaces, in non-queer spaces, and just how much is put on Black women, Black femmes, Black girls specifically, because we're gonna say Black because people of color and all is different. Um,
You don't gotta explain that. We all Black femmes up in here.
I know you be seeing me, Legacy. Fuck with that. Um, and I'm sorry, this is a heavy topic, so I have to use humor to get through this, but just how many times it feels like you have to be a certain way. And felt it in high school, felt it in college, feel it now, like even in the workplace. I think my version of assimilation, to kind of touch on that, Deja, was like, okay, like I'm gonna be a very friendly person, I'm gonna be very likable. Like I'm a stallion, I'm 6'1", like I already know people feel some type of way about that. Um, but it wasn't until like I kind of left my college environment that I was like, man, and like also having my girlfriend who challenged me on it, and being like, yeah, I'm always the first one to say hello. I'm always the first one to be like, how are you? And being that welcoming person. Legacy, hearing you say that Black girls are born a mother, like that just like that brought up so much. Like I already like tearing up talking about it, but kind of being that, best friend, that guide, that everything but yourself. And I hate how often femmes and women are already defined by the relationships they have to others, never by who they are. Like I'm not a standalone person. I'm like, and I hate it too when, men and specifically Black men try to do their big one and they're like, yes, we love our sisters, our mothers, it's like, no, like I'm my own person, outside of my relationship to you. But then that goes into patriarchy and now I'm just trying to burn everything down. So it's just, it's a lot. It's a lot. And I think hearing all of this is good, though more painful, just because I do work in an elementary school that is majority, Black and brown. So seeing the way that, little Black girls are policed about their bodies or seeing how, the admin and trying to help maybe, you know, a little a little girl who might be a bit rambunctious, which already like there's a lot to that. By being like, okay, you're gonna be like a big sister to so and so, and just being pushed into certain roles. Um, the way that I work with a lot of white women, um, how I often feel the pressure to be the first one to be like, yes, hi, hello, like this perceived but not desired. It feels like it extends to so much more. And I know that touches on another question, Livia. I feel like we're just like jumping, but um, it's about so much more than romantic attraction. It's like it's the familial relationships, it's the platonic, it's the professional relationships where it just feels like I'm constantly having to give you like a rap sheet of all the reasons why I'd be a great XYZ before you can even like take a chance to try and know me. And that's just like that feels so damning sometimes. So
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I feel like, yeah, this conversation's, yeah, I definitely needed it for real. And honestly, the outline, I am not strict about an outline. I made it more for y'all than me, for real. Because I was okay taking the conversation wherever the spirit led it. So, um, one thing, to Legacy's point about like Black women being born mothers, I feel like that resonates with me so heavily because like I'm the eldest daughter. And I think that I realized in the last like I think 25 is where it really hit hard, but I definitely feel like it's a lesson that I'm still continuously learning and it just gets harder, is that like what it meant for me to be a good child doesn't necessarily prepare me well to be a good adult.
Mm,
Because I think that I was the type of child where I was like I wanted to be seen but not heard. Like I'm always asking my mom if she needs help. I'm like, I'm the one taking initiative. I'm the one trying to make things easier even if it means accepting less. Like I'm just the one that is always trying to like just be the easier child, and if anything be more of like a second mom than a child in the sense of like being a burden. And I think that as I got older, that became very hard when I got around other adults because I realized that that doesn't do you any good. Like not speaking up don't really do you any good. Accepting less or trying to come off like as a nicer, quieter person has honestly only led me to just like do things that were just very disingenuous to myself. And it was difficult to understand because I feel like for a long time I was just always the easier child, the easier person. And there was something that Deja said, I don't remember exactly, but it made me think of when you said it, that I used to say a lot like, "Oh, I'm just happy to be here." And I tried to stop saying that because I feel like for a while it came from a place of like insecurity of like I didn't even know if I was gonna get in the building. So I'm just happy I'm here for real. Like y'all ain't gotta give me nothing to eat, y'all ain't gotta give me nothing to drink, y'all ain't gotta treat me like a guest. I'm just here. And I feel like it's gotten to a point where it's like, actually, I'm supposed to be here. So why am I happy that I'm here in the first place? I would like more. I want to be here and some.
I want to be
Um,
here and accommodated.
okay. And I feel like that saying of like, oh, I'm just happy to be here just really came from a place of like insecurity and also like connecting to like the good child thing I mentioned of like being seen but not heard. Like I'm just trying to be out the way. I don't want to bother nobody. I don't want to ruffle too many feathers. I just want to be here in the corner because I just felt like, oh, like am I even going to get in the place in the first place? If so, I need to maybe act right in order to stay here.
Mm.
And I feel like now I'm realizing that that just is not like where I'm at. I don't think it's true to my personality. And I feel like I realized that it was something that just really didn't belong to me. Because I used to think that, oh, maybe I'm just shy. And I'm like, yeah, I'm shy, but like, am I really shy? Or am I just trying to come off as shy because I don't want to seem threatening? So I feel like I really had to sit with that in the last couple of years. Um, and I think it was just, yeah, like I mentioned, just really connected to wanting to be perceived nicely or in a better light, um, even if it was at the expense of myself,
It's always at our expense.
you know? Um,
Respectability politics and all of that.
And so this kind of we touched on the second question, but just to kind of ask it, how do you feel like that's impacted the way that you present yourself with others? And I think we also touched on it again before, but we can also answer the question of like what has that process of unlearning been like for you?
Mm,
Yeah, I want to touch on the unlearning part because I think very similar to you, Olivia. I was definitely that type of child. Um, and it wasn't until I got to college where, and I'm born and raised in Chicago. I went to college on the East Coast. And so I went away. And most people who I went to school with did not go away. They stayed in Illinois or they stayed in the Midwest. And for me, that was my chance. That was my chance to just like like the umbilical cord broken and to really figure out what it meant or who I wanted to be without having other people be following up on me, right? Like nobody, nothing I did was gonna get back to anybody else because my whole family, except for my brother, but who lived in Philly, but older brother, great brother, right? But nobody was going to be checking up after me, being like, what's Jessica doing? And I also didn't call home, honestly. I did not call home. I was like, and I did not go home if I did not have to go home. I was very like dedicated to really like departing and isolating myself because I needed to know who I would be without that, you know? And so I will say part of it is like, yes, the physical distance that was really helpful for me. And the second part was realizing, because I also went to a PWI, and on top of that, I went to like a school. I went to a private school, growing up, like K through 12 private school, and honestly, been with the same kids since I was 5 years old. Between 5 and 18, I've been with the same kids. Um, and going to another institution made me realize that what my school's idea of academic rigor was, that academic rigor could be actually interpreted in many different things, and those things could actually involve choice in a way that my upbringing and my school life did not involve much choice. Like oftentimes, many choices were made for me in school, and if I tried to make a choice, those choices were changed by the adults because they wanted me to be in like an AP class instead of a class that I might have been interested in that might have happened at the same time. You know what I mean? Um, so the realization that, to be honest, all these other people in this environment had way more choices than I did, the distance, and then the actual like learning and reading part of it, right? So I majored in sociology and minored in African American studies, and like the amount of classes that like I was really dedicated to trying to learn about my own life experience and why I was experiencing my life the way that I was experiencing it. And taking that route, I think really just like cracked a lot of things open for me in terms of being like, oh, there have been other Black femmes that have had this experience throughout time. And even my aunts have had this experience, right? What they chose to do with the experience might have been different than these people who I'm reading, like the Audre Lordes, the Alice Walkers, and the Toni Morrisons. It may have been different, but there's the same experience, and they chose to do something different with it. And which means that I also have the capacity to do something different with it. Let me figure out what that different thing is that I can do with it, right? And I will say like that laid a very strong foundation, but still, even in the midst of it, like the reality was in my own personal life, like in my own like love life, like I was chasing around a biracial man for 6 years, right? Not being chosen, actively not being chosen, actively being like
we
playing
hate to
second.
see it.
I mean, it was really a tragedy, right? Actively playing second fiddle to another, racially ambiguous black woman, femme, right? Thinking that if I could just do this, if I could just do this, if I could just do this, right, then he would love me. right? That he would choose me over her, right? And that's what I mean by like even when you're in the unlearning phase, you're gonna be making you're gonna be making a fuck ton of mistakes. You're gonna be like having to apply that learning in your actual real life. And I will say honestly, it wasn't until and it's not an all at once thing, right? Like it's a capacity building thing, right? So every time we would be off in this whole on and off cycle, I'm writing, I'm reading, I'm journaling, I'm dancing, I'm moving, I'm metabolizing this experience through me until I finally have the instinct to follow and like say how I feel and to say what's really happening and to say and name what's coming up. And then after being able to say it, then being able to act on it, right? So not just saying it, but then being able to be like, all right, this happened. I didn't like that. And so I will be doing this and moving this way from this point forward, no matter what you think of it, right? No matter what kind of auditioning you want me to do for for your love and affection and attention, right? Um, and then finally getting to a point where I'm like, oh, actually, this isn't about a man choosing me at all. This is should I like I t I was having this moment with some younger friends of mine. I'm 28 going on 29, just so y'all know. Um, so I was having this moment with some friends of mine who just turned 25 and like we were like going through their hinges and I was like looking at their hinges and stuff and I was like asking them questions about like why did you choose this picture? Why did you choose this prompt X, Y, and Z and really trying to understand what motivations were when it came to playing the romantic game. Like, are you on this app to be chosen or are you on this app to choose? Right.
Mm.
Uh, um, and it wasn't until I personally had gotten to a point where I realized that like I could choose somebody and that if somebody didn't choose me, then it wasn't gonna work anyway, and just accepting that, then that I found a relationship that actually was like, oh, not only are we alike in what feels like a bit like equally yoked, like you see me and you consider me in a way that I have actually never, ever, ever been considered in a romantic relationship. But it's because I did this whole big upheaval of unlearning, and it happened over 6 freaking years, which is a lot, more than that, 10 years, considering like my freshman year of college to now, 10 years. Like that I finally feel like I'm at a point where I not only I know what I want, I believe what I want, and I can prioritize that without feeling like I need to audition to be in spaces that I know are not going to serve me. I am not more interested in being seen than I am being loved.
Mm. Mm. I have some notes. um, no, believe and prioritize is important. I definitely relate. Um, yeah, I was in it, at the end of the day, it's really just the time spent like chasing somebody else. Because I was in a 3 year on and off situationship. What was that? You know? And that was um hmm in that time, yeah, you are metabolizing, you are trying to get to a better spot. You know, it's like, okay, how can you choose me? Because I like what somebody was saying, it was probably you, but like, what can I do? Trying to figure out what I can do so that you can choose me, because we're so conditioned to think that it's never us, it's always what we can do for others. So how can I do whatever you need me to do, because that always reaps results, you know? And recognizing that that's not always going to be the case, because that should have never had to be the case in the first place. So that that kind of shock value that hit. And then there's also getting to that space where it's like, okay, recognizing this ain't gonna work. Okay, now what? um, Now it's like, okay, what do I need, or what do I want from this? Even like, do I even want you? Maybe it's qualities that you have, you know, like what does that look like? Maybe it's something I'm missing. Maybe it's something I desire that I see in you. And that's why I keep doing this thing, because it's like, I know this isn't serving me, but I'm gonna keep doing it. And now it's like, why do I keep doing this? And now it's like, okay, I realize, you know, I'm looking for love in the wrong place, and this isn't serving me. And so I now recognize that I've got to go. Okay. And then kind of taking that time to sit with yourself until you are ready to leave, because it's really up to you. It's really up to you. Your friends could tell you, oh, leave that nigga. They suck. They not doing X, Y, and Z, but I love him. Like, ain't that a thing? You know? So it's just like, getting to that point where you just ready. You're ready to operate in your value, and to operate from a place of control and choosing, because at a certain point it just gets easy to do the thing even if it ain't serving you, because it's routine, you know, and it's what you've been doing. And life may be shitty right now, but it's not the worst that it could be. You know, this is like it's a comfortable chaos that you in. So yeah, all of, so just all of that. But I think that's so crazy though, to hmm, it's like it gets so situational to a point, because it's like, you know, even with being like, how good kids don't translate to good adults, you know, and then how being the everything woman doesn't mean shit when you're trying to look for love, you know. um it's so interesting, all the obstacles that we have to overcome to be where we want to be, you know? And I mean, yeah, like in terms of like career, it's giving, oh, pick yourself up by the bootstraps and all that other shit. It's like, okay, we're black. Like, we're black women. We are not part of the conversation. You know, we are not trust fund babies. You know, it's not just about that. Is a conversation for the 1% and damn near it. Like, um, I don't know. This is making me like think more expanse. Like, it's making me think like, when are we going to eat the rich, by the way? Speaking of, you know, what are we doing about the files? I mean, I personally, this may suck to say, I'm gonna say it though, I feel helpless. I'm like, we're all just trying to survive. What am I doing? You know, protect the kids. Yes, I'm gonna protect my kids near me, but what am I doing for, you know? But it all kind of just feels so with this war coming on and everything else, it's like this world feels very out of my hands. And is it weird to say that I fuck with that? Does that make sense? Like, just not, like, I don't know, not having control over something, because it's like, in my own life I have to control so much, you know. You have to, oh God. Yeah, wow. I kind of went on a tangent. I kind of forget how to loop it back. But um yeah, yeah.
I feel like even though I'm sorry, Christina, even though you feel like you went on a tangent, I recently saw, I don't remember the creator on TikTok, but someone asked her, why isn't she doing anything to speak out about what's going on right now? And she basically made a video, what seemed like an angry video. Of course, some people would assume, but she just was basically saying, why do you feel like me as a Black woman and me living all of these experiences with everything going on with ICE right now? Why do you feel like me as a Black woman who's already been fighting for these rights for myself and all of these other Black people have to now come and speak out about what's going on with people who aren't Black just because they're being treated like Black people haven't been treated this whole time? It's like, why do you feel like me as a Black woman, as a Black femme, need to speak out on this. Like it's been my lived experience. What is there for me to say?
I like you. Continue.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I was just gonna say that I don't know, a lot has been said, and there's always I feel like I've been moving through the idea of solidarity, just remembering that, oppression is tied to other oppression, liberation is tied to other liberation. And I feel like these days, like, because I understand what you're saying, and I think for a long time I was like, okay, because why aren't people showing up? Like, I'm here, I'm marching, I'm doing this, and not just people in like, the vague sense of the word, but I also felt it like my own personal life. Like, here I am speaking out, putting my body on the line. Like, I'm staying up late, I'm trying to handle this. Like, sure, we're all doing our things, but I feel like so many Black women I know, including like you right now, Olivia, the fact that you're running this account, like, the fact that you're organizing this event, like, as someone who has done organizing, I know how much effort and time goes into it, into drafting the questions, into reaching out, into sending the emails. Like, it's wild how much work we do, um, that isn't reciprocated. So I think for me, I've just been like, I don't even know. Like, I'm gonna do it, but not expect it. And maybe there's something to be said about that. Maybe there's something to, because everyone's been saying, about choice and having and asking for more. I don't know, Deja. I don't know because yeah. And to your point, legacy, I do feel helpless, but it just feels like the one thing I can do, the one thing I can do in this time. But yeah. But all that being said, like I feel just looking back at the question, just to bring it back, because I know I could go in like a million directions here, but um how this impacted, I think the process of unlearning has been wild. I don't know about my other queer folk on here, but the compet of it all, I feel like that in addition to being practically born in the church, in addition to being like from a family with very expansive ideas of what women could do outside the home, but very rigid, like even if, my mom was sitting there making more than my dad, it was still like, no, but he's the head of the household, like type thing, that there's always been this way that I feel like women, Black femmes, are just constantly expected to die to self. And I think unlearning that has been wild. I also had someone has to stop these men. But there was also a biracial man. I felt like I was there. No, Jess, let me tell you. Also, I did like lived on the East Coast, moved to Chicago. I was like, I gotta be different. Like I right here, right here. But no, bandit, time stolen. I can't get it back. I can't sue that man. Oh my God. But
we can find a way.
you know what?
Right.
Because we can do anything. Speak on it. But the amount of time and horror wasted, like, I'm not proud to admit, but definitely was in like an emotional cheating situation, tried to call him out, gaslit me to Helen back, and then acted like everything was okay. And I was just like, I was shocked. And I was I was surprised. Because I feel like me now and perhaps me before, I don't know what happens once you turn 18, but like I guess that's when the pressure to date, marry, whatever really, really began. But I feel like I never would have accepted anything that was happening. But there's all of this pressure all of a sudden, and it was like, oh, now's the time to do it. And, just baby me just figuring out romantic relationships and different things. I was like, oh, so this is what it's like. Okay, so you just do this. And also being surrounded by a lot of people who a lot of Black women, a lot of Black femmes who had said, wow, okay, this man picked me. And it's like, well, he sucks. He sucks. He's the worst. He's the worst. But at least he picked you. Uh, yeah, I was just like, what? Like, y'all, the embarrassed. Is this a safe space? Is this a safe space? Tell me
Yes.
why I'm chasing this biracial bandit. He's a whole Trump supporter. Y'all, shocked and bamboozled. So it was just, and that I feel adds like another layer, especially with Black. It's okay. He's okay. He's married to his white wife. He's okay. But
We don't wish him okay.
you know
Don't
what?
wish him well. In this day and age, still, it was never okay, but okay.
We're okay. It's not okay, but still I'm learning a lot. Still trying not to, because I don't know about y'all. I know it's very much patriarchy, but always justifying, I feel, is what I've got to unlearn, justifying how these men treated, how, and not just men, but like everybody treats Black women. Like, yeah, I mean, and even like to get real personal, like even stuff with my parents, like, yeah, they did that, but they were struggling a lot, and they didn't have the capacity and they just needed someone to be there for their kids. And like I was there, so why not? As far as like, being born a mother goes. But then in relationships too, like there's always something going on. And I feel like unlearning has been giving a lot of empathy and grace to all the versions of myself and just being like, oh my gosh, like your story matters too. Like sure this could have been happening and that is valid and how they feel is valid. How they treated you is not okay. Um, I feel like that's really been a lot of it and trying to be a better friend to myself and be like, if someone did this to one of your friends, it would be at their door, like the tombstone's already there, damn. So like I'm tired of just kind of accepting the worst of the worst and smiling because at long last someone has chosen me, whether again in a job, as a friend, or as a romantic partner, like someone had said yes. And I really appreciate what you said, Legacy, about abundance, because there is so much abundance. And I think, you know, 25 looking at 19, 20, 21-year-old me, I'm like, oh wow, like that was just one person and there's this whole life, and now it's like me and my girlfriend, Black femme. Like I'm just like, this is, I don't know who said it. It might have been you. Yes, love is love. Um, Legacy, but just being treated in ways that I never could have imagined. I remember one conversation specifically too, and I'll end here, but just where I was like, yeah, I was just really surprised, that like you like me because I didn't do anything. Because I don't know about y'all, but there's always like a plotting and a planning and a scheming. Oh, Jess, who said that? There's a plotting, planning, scheming. There's okay, where are they gonna be? What club are they? Oh, okay, maybe if I bump into them, does my outfit look cute? Oh, I know they're gonna be at this function tonight. Like maybe I should do this. But there wasn't that. And so much performance. And like performance, yes, but also rehearsal.
Ah,
Like, because the amount of time it takes to be like, okay, when they say this joke, this is what you're gonna do. And talking to your friends too and being like, okay, this is how it's gonna play out. And this is what we're gonna do. And the amount of journaling done and the playlists and the movies and just everything that goes into it, for this one performance. And even if you do your supposed best, it can still be like, you didn't get the part. And they're asking us to do impossible things too, because of course the standard of femininity, like I'd argue in the US and low-key worldwide, is to be a white woman. And there's nothing I can do to change the way that I've been made, the beautiful way that I've been made. And it's tiring to be like, okay, I know I'm a dark-skinned Black femme, but at least I've got this. There's no at least. I am very much the package, the whole deal, the gift. And it's been a lot to recognize that, but I'd say my current relationship and the amount of people in my life who are unlearning gender, unlearning patriarchy, just doing all sorts of dismantling of systems. Yes, oppression, yes, outward, but inward too. All that inward work has benefited me, and I'm so grateful for it because it allows me to also kind of critique certain things that happened when I was younger and be like, that wasn't okay.
Mm. I think in the terms of like unlearning and the conversations that we have with ourselves or with our like close quarters, um, one thing, one word that has helped us just soften ourselves is grace, giving ourselves grace and saying that, I'll be there for you within my capacity. I'll be here within my capacity. I'll do whatever within my capacity, or just be like, that's not within my capacity. I don't want to do, I don't want to be, I don't want to. Um, I think that has been something that I've been doing in this like unlearning process. Um, and also just allowing myself to be. I think just being like just be, not just do it, just be has been that's been my mantra. That's something that is a theme in a lot of my poems and stuff. Um, and that's how I move for real. So just living and being is what I've been doing to just unlearn or evolve and question and learn to then see what fits and what doesn't, as I figure myself out. Um, yeah. Um, how's that impacted the way you present yourself with others, if at all? Yeah, no, I'll just be being. And like if I make a misstep, I just give myself grace and keep it pushing. I mean, I don't have much shame at all, to be honest, because everything that happened already happened. What I'm gonna do with that? There's not I can't hold that. Um, so yeah, I've just been keeping on. We've all got some regrets. I just can't wait to the point where I forgot it. But yeah.
Yeah, you gotta go live. Yeah, you have to go live. You can't get so caught up in the in what feels like the ropes of all those things that feel like they're holding you or like grasping onto you that you forget to actually go and be in the life. Yeah, I totally hear you about that because then it just brings you back to that place of rehearsal and auditioning of like, okay, well, before I have this experience, I'm gonna do this, and hopefully that'll get me that outcome. You know what I mean? Um, I think how it's been showing up for me when I'm with other people, honestly, I've been saying no. Well, I'll say this. I've been saying no a lot more lately. Um, And even in moments where I am feeling like recognized, right? Like that even if I know it's a space that I will go into and be both perceived and desired and known and chosen, right? If it's beyond my capacity, I'm saying no, right? Or I'm gonna say like I can't meet you here, but I can meet you there, right? And not being afraid that saying no will cause other people to reject me, and if that does cause people to reject me, then I mean, that just shows that the offer was conditional anyway, right? So what's the point, you know? Like I've been especially, and I've been really, really holding that with in like non-black spaces. Um, like recently, so I dance, and so I was dancing in a group that was primarily not, I mean, yeah, it was not black. The reality is I was the only black person up in there. Um, And but the style, the dance style was an Afro-diasporic dance style, right? Um, and I stopped performing with them it just so happened that something happened that actually gave me a very natural break. And then, but people kept asking me to like show up to things. And at first I was showing up, and then I was realizing how uncomfortable it was to be in those spaces where I am the only Black person and I'm being looked to provide a certain kind of validation for their actions because I'm the Black one in the group, right? And I had to just like have a conversation about it. Like I had to just talk about it with them. And it was very uncomfortable. And actually, I didn't feel I had the illusion, they gave me the illusion that I was being seen and heard and appreciated for actually saying something. But behind my back or not to my face, that wasn't the case, right? So now I just don't exist with those people, right? Like I see it, like I don't like they stuff, like I just am like, yeah, I see what you are, right? And then the reality also is like a lot of these folks are also queer and have queer identities, right? They're non-Black queer people, right? And not at all thinking about or thinking in some way that their queerness is absolving them of the racial implications of their actions, which is just not. And so I'm saying I've been saying no. I've just been saying no and not allowing myself to be tokenized, not allowing what I have, now that I recognize what I have as something that is a gift and something that folks do want to take advantage of. I'm like, I'm withholding and I'm saving that for the spaces where I feel welcome, which to be honest are overwhelmingly Black only and also not super cishet. So
Sounds like a win to me. Shit. That beginning sounded shaky. You weren't supposed to be there to begin with. So I'm glad that God or whatever you believe in just ripped you out of that some way or another. And I also think it's really beautiful that we're having this conversation about this concept that we've all been grappling with because it's just so prevalent in our lives as Black women or Black femmes. Um, but we're coming into this conversation with like um, having kind of graduated from this concept. Yeah, that's something I noticed that I wanted to shout out. I feel like I've been chosen or whatever. I'm in this cool kind of situation happening right now, very new, but it feels good to um just be and to have that be appreciated, you know. But yeah, I wanted to speak to that.
like really hand claps for us. Like truly. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Um, the next question I wanted to ask, that I'll kind of be skipping around a little bit, but I really wanted to ask or talk about like the messages that we've heard from other Black women, femmes, non-binary folks about how we're supposed to accept desire or love. I feel like we touched on that a bit. Um, and I also wanted to ask a question that Deja posed, but around desirability. And do you believe that it stems from our own personal preferences or social conditioning? I will just say for myself to start, I think that the message that I got mostly from my mom about love and desire was that it was either like the man had to, like, you either had to like the man more than he liked you, or you're gonna be in a shitty situation. Like those are just kind of either one of the two. It's either you got to be in charge or someone else is gonna be in charge of you. Which side do you want to be on? And I think that that was always very difficult for me to hear because I'm a sensitive girly. You know, I would like in my mind I'm like, why can't I just be in love? Like why can't I just like what do you mean? Like why can't we just be a partnership? Like I don't understand why it has to be one or the other. Um and I think that although that sensitive side did did put me in a lot of situations where I am getting my feelings hurt. I also think that I still had held fast because I feel like I'm a sensitive girly and that's just who I am. And I think I've learned to love that part about me. Um, but I do think that a lot of her, I realized over time that a lot of her reasoning in saying that was because there are other messages that you hear from Black women, where, it's like, oh, we got to get a meeting. Well, or having a partner is like the defining factor of your life. And it is like something that, if you don't have a partner, then you ain't shit. And so I think that it was kind of her way of like opposing against that. But I think that even now seeing a lot of people's conversations about dating, it feels like a lot of it is coming from those buckets, I feel, rather than like a deep sense of like everybody just want to be loved and seen and considered. Let's have the conversation from that standpoint on. And also that the way that love looks, I feel like is very versatile for everybody. I think that also being queer is what introduced me to that point as well, that love doesn't have to look so distinct. It can look very, very different. And it's ultimately just rooted from how you would like to be loved. Um, but I do think that this, I personally believe that desirability stems from social conditioning. I know that a lot of people would be like, "Oh, well, I got my preference or whatnot," and I can get in a soapbox about this, but I'm not. But I do feel like um, preference is a one thing, but I do think that if you are a person that wants to better understand yourself, I think that it's your responsibility to ask yourself why you like these things. And I think that sometimes when I get into conversations with people who are just like, that's just a personal preference, it's giving like, you've never asked yourself why you like that. And you may not want to even ask yourself because you scared of the answer. And I think that that's really what divides that conversation for me. And I think that even for myself, when I looked at a lot of what I felt, what types of guys I was attracted to, what types of women I was attracted to, I think that kind of it did involve a certain sense of like, okay, like let me really think about where this came from. Is this because I actually like this thing, or is it because I feel like this thing means something or represents something or whatever? And I think that a lot of people just, like I said, just don't want to sit with those questions. So, what does everybody else think?
I feel like in what you were saying, I understand you being a sensitive girly, me as well. I think a lot of people love can turn so transactional. And it's like, I do this for you, you do this for me, but it gets to be ego driven sometimes, in that right. But I do also think that, and this is me coming from being a plus size, a fat woman, me being Black as well. Um, a lot of people, I just feel like they may be attracted to me, but in turn, they wonder what they look like with me, if that makes sense. I feel like it stems from the playground, really. Being small and, oh, he likes you because or he's mean to you because he has a crush on you. Or, when you sometimes grow up, people who you went to school with will reach out to you like, oh, I liked you, but my friends are saying this or but this. And it's just like, why did that have such an impact on your actions to you?
Real. I've definitely heard that where it's like, oh, I liked you then, but my friends didn't. So, and it's just like, okay, do you want your friends? Like, what is that? I've heard niggas be like, yeah, that shit's gay. Like, I'm not performing my who I like for, I'm not trying to get that approved. This is me. What the hell? Y'all ain't in my bed. Y'all ain't in, X, Y, and Z. Um, Not even to take it there, but like, what does my attraction have to do with you at the end of the day? I think that kind of that performance or just want to be that desire for that kind of acceptance has always been weird and like not questioned enough. Um, yeah. Um, Hold on. What was the question again? I forget. What messages have we heard around how we're supposed to accept desire or love? Um, and where do these Thank you. Messages about desirability stem from, well, personal preference versus social conditioning. Um, yeah, I just want to speak to that. Actually, you can come back to me.
Yeah, I'll speak to this, and this I want to just also say I have a hard stop in like the next 7 minutes because I have rehearsal at 1 and I gotta get food between then. But I think in terms of what I've heard, I think just in terms of how I grew up, to be real, like I grew up, my mom, single mom, the story of how she divorced my dad is damn near like the Odyssey, right? Um, in terms of like now that I'm an adult, I really see it as inspiration and a model, right? Because, my dad was not doing right, and she left him. Like she had me and she left and she said, I'm not gonna tolerate this. Like I deserve better. And similarly, like most of my aunts really are not, they've had partners like come and go maybe, or like, kind of domestic partnerships, but I would consider them single, honestly, for the most part. Um, how that has manifested for them has been different for each of them, right? But I will say like I grew up in a family where like I had a lot of models of what single womanness could look like. And I think in my youth, because the societal ideas of dating were very much not that, I used to feel like something was wrong, right? Um, but now that I've become an adult, I actually realize that that's actually a really great model for being, right? And I think even when I think about like my idea of queerness and being like a queer Black femme, a lot of it is really rooted around like I don't subscribe to many of the social norms of womanhood, right? Like this idea of the cooking, the cleaning, the domesticity. No, 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 no. The sense of like needing to be put together and manicured in some kind of like doll-like way. No, 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 no. Like these ideas of presentability and respectability, I don't ascribe to, right? And that's meant needing to disappoint people on like on both ends of the spectrum, right? Whether it's friends or family or potential romantic partners. But it's also meant that like now that I have gotten clear about it, it's and this kind of goes back to the like being chosen versus choosing, like realizing that I can actually choose a partner that is down for what I'm bringing as a queer femme, right? Um, and that it's not something that I have to like change about myself, right? And yeah, I'm like, I'll say I'm one of the unfortunate few who is with a man at this point. But like, I think because of that, I already knew that I was gonna have to be very strict about what that meant for me, right? Like when I was searching, I was very much like, I'm demisexual. That is what I am. If you don't know what that means, or if you're not down for the process of us getting to know each other as friends, right? Before any kinds of sexual or romantic gestures come into the picture, then we don't need to be together. I was very strict on that, right? I was very strict on like, what is your idea? When you think about yourself as living with somebody, what do you think about that process? Like, how do you think about sharing and managing household related duties and X, Y, and Z? I had to be very strict about that stuff because I knew that my gender identity was tied up in those things in ways that they didn't really think about, right?
Mm.
As far as the desirability question, I surely do believe it is socially constructed. And like I said it down there, I'm not a fruit. I'm not a fucking fruit. You like you can't just be like, oh, bananas are too sweet for me. It don't work like that. It don't work like that because if you're having a certain preference or prescription about any kind of racial group, it is likely very deeply woven into an experience, a socialized experience you've had with people of that group, right? So like I can say for myself, right? I like my quote unquote preference, which is not a preference, is that I do not date white people. I don't do it. because I cannot wrap my head around the complexities of that. And I actually feel like that's an added complexity to my identity that I'm not willing to take on, given who I say I am. If I am who I say I am, then for me, that has meant that, like, I can't be with a partner and share intimacy in a way, or even think about potentially bringing children into a world when I don't know how we're going to reckon with the power differential in this relationship. And that's just the reality of it, right? We can totally, like, I have white friends and all this other stuff, right? And we reckon with that in our friendship. But when it comes to your intimate life and also thinking about this idea of family and children and X, Y, and Z, if somebody is not thinking about that, or even if that person has people around them who are not thinking about that, because the degrees of separation are very real, then you're ultimately putting yourself in a potential situation to end up being harmed. And I just didn't want to take the risk. I genuinely didn't want to take the risk. And yes, that is a socialized, that is socialized, right? That is based on my social experiences with whiteness in this world as a Black femme. And if other people who have those preferences can't sit with that, then I think that they're missing something very vital about themselves, and also answering that question about what it means to be loved and what it means to love somebody else.
Mm. Mm.
I'm so glad, Jess, that you talked about leaving. I feel like the art of leaving, especially as a Black woman, is something that can be hard to understand. I was speaking to a friend about participating in this conversation, and she asked me, what did I have to contribute to the conversation, being that I am often the leaver. I I don't know. I think that being kept, people often think about someone keeping you, but I think about being kept in what we're saying, being considered and actually being understood in people desiring us. So that kind of reinforces the message that we should settle, that we should, I guess, put up with something that we don't feel like we deserve, or something that's less than what we deserve. Um, and I feel like, yeah, I guess I'd lose my train of thought, but I definitely feel like being or learning the art of leaving is a part of enforcing your boundaries as a Black woman. And that doesn't mean that you don't also want to be kept, just because you're not settling for whatever kind of keeping someone is trying to give to you.
I like that a lot. I mess with that a lot for sure. Um, just what being kept means, being kept doesn't mean actually staying. It means also recognizing that I can stay, recognizing that this is a good space or not. And I like that. Learning the art of leaving, learning the art of saying no, um, are that's big. It's big for Black femmes especially. Um, and I think too in terms of like mm, femininity that we've been taught, or just like structures, because I do think that mm, yeah, I do think it's more so like a social thing rather than personal preference. It's always, you know, I don't want to say it's always that, but anyway, I'm over here too focused on the questions. I just want to speak. So I think femininity, the conditioning of that has been very interesting. Honestly, as part of the reason like why like when I realized that was part of my journey in becoming like non-binary, or realizing that that's who I was, because I didn't necessarily align like uh there are certain aspects of womanhood that felt too hard to hold. Um and I also didn't align with it. And yeah, that's actually something, that concept of like being, because I consider myself a non-binary Black woman X, just to be inclusive of that. Uh, that the reckoning of that has been something I've been dealing with a lot. I'm trying to write about, especially as Women's Month approaches. But yeah, I think there's a lot of course, as we've been saying, harsh and like harmful conditioning that takes place, especially for women. And okay, bye, Jess. Thank you so much. You're awesome. And yeah, yeah. Okay, now I am gonna go back to the questions because I'm sure there's some shit I gotta say somewhere. Um, what was it? How is that? Y'all, I got ADHD and some more shit, so bear with me. um, how's that impacted the way you present with yourself? Well, I don't know. I feel like I present still very femme and regular, whatever the fuck that is. But yeah, just open with who I am. What messages about how we're supposed to accept, love, and desire, and how we're supposed to act. Yeah, I said what I had to say.
I don't think I really answered. Sorry. I don't think I fully answered how it's affected the way I show up. I think that with me, I'll honestly tend to show up more aggressively than I actually am as a state of like protection or I don't know, a warning of what it can be like. So that I won't in the future, not so that I won't, but I think that when I don't state my boundaries initially, it creates a space for me to have to reinforce them aggressively, whether rather than me just stating my boundaries like sternly in the beginning and then me just being strict from there. I think because I don't want to be looked at as angry, I kind of am more stern in the beginning, initially meeting people, so that it doesn't come to a state where I have to overcorrect, is really the word I'm looking for.
Interesting to think about. I feel like, yeah, preemptive versus patching up. That's interesting to think about. I feel like a lot of times I'm not necessarily stern, but I do like a bit more reserved, until I know I can, kind of let my guard down a little bit till I feel safe. But I found that, working with kids, I did kind of do that approach. I've learned so much about boundaries and saying no, like in this past year. Um, and I think it is frustrating to constantly have to like reassert your boundaries. And I feel like for me, Deja, it shows up in me trying to be with, and I don't know if it's the healthiest thing, but people who maybe have a tendency to like over consider others and their feelings just so I don't have to have certain conversations. But I know that's also not super healthy because we need to vocalize how we feel. It's not fair to put it on a person to be like, oh, yes, you know what I'm thinking, So that's something that I've been seeing a bit, but I also really felt you as a fat black femme myself. Like it just adds a whole other layer to all of this. No legacy. I don't know. I'm working on what I said about believing what I want. Yes, I'm like aware of what I want, but I don't always believe that it's valid. So I'm working through that. But
Real. Same.
yeah. But as a fat black femme, it has been like a journey, because there are already so many things, like especially, and I guess this is the challenge of having so many ways that you're marginalized, but you go into a queer space and then there's the fat phobia, the racism. You go into a black space, of course there's like heavy-handed patriarchy, and then also just again the fat phobia, like thinking about jokes where people are like, oh yeah, big back, and all of these things. Like, it's painful. And I know that already happens for, white, like fat white women, like where they're also like, no, you just need to take whatever you can get. So to have that being said about me because I'm fat, because I'm femme, because I'm Black. It's just a lot of the messaging has been anyone is better than nothing. And I think I've really learned more in my platonic relationships that like that's just not the case. Like, um, back to like the whole bandit, like the amount of time and energy stolen, the amount of oh my gosh, the resources I needed to build back my self-confidence and my esteem after that, like it just simply wasn't worth it. It simply wasn't worth it. Um, and I think about that in a lot of aspects of life where it's like, sure, you might have the thing or might get close to the thing, but having the thing is actually terrible for your health. And it was in like my junior year, going summer after my junior year, going into my senior year, like was not well. And I had to really consider all of the relationships in my life and how there were some where I was like, oh, like you are, like, this is literally making me physically unwell. And I cannot be around you. I cannot be doing certain things. And I think I felt that for being around certain people to kind of go back to the question, Olivia, who were like, no, you just have to settle. Like, wow, like there are people who can lead you, not lead you because we all have agency, but just you can end up in the worst of times because of the people who are in your ear. And I think like being more mindful of that and being like, actually, that is terrible. And I have like times in my life where I'm like, oh, that led to me going through this and this and this and this because someone somewhere said, yeah, you just have to accept it. This is as good as it's gonna get for you. Um, you asking for anything more is ridiculous and it's silly when we all know damn well like that love, that abundance exists. I'm a big believer that it exists. Um, Even though, yes, the world very much like you're undesirable. So I think that's been a lot of it. And there's been a lot of healing forces in my life that have reminded me specifically, like, no, you're worth it. You're worthy of good things, the same way everybody's worthy of good things. So
Thank you. So I am looking at time and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. And so even though we're having an amazing conversation, this was great. This was exactly what I needed. Um, and I'm gonna stop the recording here.